Hi everyone, this is John. Usually in my videos, I'm going out somewhere to photograph a place or something, and I take you along with me. And in this video, I want to do something a little different. Every once in a while, someone will come up to me and ask or say that they want to get into photography, and they'll ask which camera they should buy. And before I answer their question, usually it's just as simple. Usually they're asking which brand they should buy. Should they get a Canon or a Sony or Nikon or something? And while those are simple, the simple answer is just yes to all the above. In this video, I want to talk about the mindset of what to look for when buying a camera. You can go to a photography store or a camera store, and you'll see all kinds of brands and models, and I imagine it can be overwhelming. I want to give you some quick tips that have been helpful to me, that are more questions to ask versus just answers. So the first question is, what kind of photography do you want to do? And it's okay if you don't know the answer, but it's something to think about. Do you want to do portraits? Do you want to do weddings? Do you want to photograph food, landscapes, sports, real estate? You know, there's a wide variety of photography, areas of photography. But the question is, what kind of photography are you thinking about maybe at this moment? Maybe you're just thinking about portraits. Knowing a little bit what kind of photography you want to at least start with, that will help you lead you in a direction of which kind of camera to get. Every type of photography has its niche, whether you're doing sports photography or weddings. If you go to a sporting event like Major League Baseball or NBA or football, you'll see the pro photographers there. They have these lenses that are huge telescopes, and you might think those are for a professional uses those lenses. The gear a wedding photographer would be different from what a sports photographer is using, but there's a lot of overlap in these areas of photography, and I'll get into that in a second. Before I get into cameras themselves, I want to highlight one very important fundamental, is learning photography itself. Before spending lots of money on cameras, I'm going to imagine most of you have a smartphone, be it an iPhone or Android, be it Galaxy or Pixel. I don't know which Android phones. I'm filming on an iPhone right now. The biggest thing is to learn manual controls, to learn about exposure, composition, lighting, all that kind of stuff. There's all kinds of videos out there to learn the fundamentals of photography, and having the convenience of the phone in your pocket, having that in your pocket, it's a game changer. With your camera phone, there are many free apps out there where you get manual controls over the settings of the camera. So that's a great place to start, I think. It's just learning to get maybe the flavor of photography. After a while, you'll learn there's limitations, and that's okay. When you find those limitations, I think that's a good starting point to find it's time to move forward. And there's a whole world out there to move forward with. And the second tip is to think about long-term and adaptability. From there, I tell people, okay, from your iPhone, start to think about an SLR camera or a DSLR camera. The reason being, you can adapt. There's many ways to adapt these cameras. Namely, you can change lenses to have a telephoto lens, super wide angle lens, a macro lens. Because as you start to learn what kind of photography you want to be doing, be it weddings, portraits, sports, the camera becomes not so much about the camera itself, the body, but it becomes about the lenses. And the lenses are what would be key in those different areas of photography. I'm thinking long term, cameras are sort of like cars, where in 2022 they come out with a new model of a car, and in 2023 there's a new model of a car, and where the features don't change all that much. But the one thing that lasts longer are the lenses. They will last longer than these camera bodies. And to start thinking, when you start thinking long term, you start to learn what lenses do for you. So when I say that lenses are where the investment is, I want to give an example. In portrait photography, the typical focal lengths and lenses for portraits is between, let's say, 50 millimeters and 135 millimeters. Now, if I was just starting out and thinking in terms of adaptability, my recommendation is to get a 50mm lens. With a 50mm lens, you're able to get portraits of people from the waist up, full length, headshots closer up, and that's all with just one lens. So let's say someone says, hey, I see you do portraits, would you photograph my wedding? And that might be overwhelming at first to think about, but what is a wedding? It's photographing portraits, but with people in nice clothes. So the 50mm all of a sudden becomes a wedding lens, and it's very popular amongst wedding photographers. You're still photographing people from far away, close up, you know, but it's all the same lens. So thinking in terms of adaptability, try to see with this one lens, you'll learn through experience, but how can I use this in more than just one area? And that becomes adaptability. Let's say you need something more of a niche. That 50mm doesn't photograph the moon. It becomes very tiny. So you get something that's a telephoto, or you're photographing sports, you need something that goes far out. So thinking of your cameras being adaptable, you can use that one lens for a variety of applications, but you can also add a second lens to that same camera to where you can get a little bit more specific or do something a little more creative. So the world opens up. So like I was saying about the long-term adaptability is, let's say in 5 years time, this camera becomes a little slow for you, or you see the newer cameras have newer features, you swap out this camera for the new camera, but the lenses stay the same. You know, so that's what I'm trying to get at. It's saying, you know, the system, it generally stays the same. You don't have to upgrade everything every year. And I'm not trying to say that you should upgrade your camera every year, but just getting in the mindset that this part is sort of interchangeable with all of this, but this remains. This is your photographic eye, if you want to give it language. So before I answer this last question, just know I'm not sponsored by anybody. So the original question was, which camera should you buy? With that question, I highly recommend either a Sony, Nikon, or Canon. I'm a Canon shooter myself. All three brands, they have lenses from the top of the line to the more entry level that fit on all of their cameras, or you might need an adapter that's inexpensive. So with that, I highly recommend buying used cameras. One, you can find great deals, but you can find the top of the line camera from, let's say, 5 years ago, which still are great today. They may not be the new thing, but they're still great. So I highly recommend a website called 𝗂𝗂𝘀𝗶𝗀.com. Again, I'm not sponsored by them, but they have a great grading system for their used gear, and you can find great deals. They get free shipping. There's another one called mpb.com. Everything's used. So I highly recommend that, or just looking on Facebook Marketplace, or even amongst your friends to say, hey, does anybody have a used camera or a camera they don't want anymore that you want to check out? You can also rent cameras. There's lensrentals.com, borrowlenses.com, and I'm sure there's others, or maybe there's a local shop around you. And that's also a great place to start, is your local shop, if you have one. There's some salespeople that actually are there to help answer your questions. They're there to help you make the right choice, because they also want you to come back and grow with them as well. So that's it for this video. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them down below. I'm happy to help you. Feel free to subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye.